Wolf, I know you're excited because Drew Petzing just walked into the studio. Drew, thank you for the time. How's it going out there?
Great. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah.
So, Drew, not to start you off on a very ferocious question, but where did you get your ferocious philosophy from? I want to know this because I absolutely love your mentality when it comes to the game of football. You know this. I've talked to you about this before. But where does that ferocious philosophy come from?
That's a great question. It's the nature of I think the sport brings it out. I mean, if you look at how this sport's played and what's been successful in this sport over the years, it's a violent game. You need people who love that aspect of it if you're going to be good at all positions, in both the run and the pass game. So I think it's certainly just being a part of the game, playing the game, loving the game, and then I think just the way I was raised and guys I coached around kind of preach that and were about that, and certainly that seeped into who I am.
Was there a coach? Was there one guy specifically that kind of had that mentality that you emulated?
I mean, it probably closest comes from North Turner. He was a guy, great run game, gap scheme run game, downhill, down the rock, but also could air it out and was not afraid to throw the ball. I mean, Phillip Rivers, he had some great quarterbacks under his tenure. Troy Aikman, obviously.
Yep.
So it proved to me that it can be done in the pass game and the run game and still with that attitude. And I think that's really important to having success on offense in this league.
There's been this sense that you guys have a lot of players that think similarly or approach the game the same way. And I know it's very early in this tenure with you and JG and Nick Rollis and Monty Ossenfort, and yet it's already noticeable. And we're already hearing some of the rookies that are just coming in point out, like, yeah, they drafted a bunch of guys that kind of think the same. I'm assuming that's by design. Have you already noticed that?
I think it's a big part of the evaluation process. Football character is really, and it stems from the top. It's JG, it's Monty. Football character is extremely important to who we are as an organization, what we believe in, and what we think is going to allow us to be successful. So getting guys that buy into that identity, that have that mentality, I think is very important. And then if we identify it, if we see it, when we get them in the building, it's only going to go tenfold if we're building the right culture in the building.
Yeah, like Tip Ryman.
No. Well, you held out for a minute.
I was going to say, if I had the over-under on that, I would have definitely taken the under.
Okay, so Drew, honestly, I'm sure you scouted this guy, right? Pretty heavily right there. Can you give us your scouting report on Tip Ryman?
Yeah, I think it's the stuff that we just talked about. He's violent in the way that he plays the game. Certainly his physical tools allow him to do it at maybe a level that's certain. Like, look, I can't do what he does even if I am violent. But he loves it. And you see that in the way he plays. You see that in the way he prepares. You felt that through the off-season process of evaluation and getting to know him as a person. And certainly the tape speaks for itself. But anytime you get a player with those physical tools and that attitude and mentality, it can be dynamic.
How is he going to change this offense in a rundown situation?
Again, I don't know if it's going to be a drastic difference in terms of who we are or how we do things. We just think he does it at a high level and is going to jump right in there and kind of mesh with how we've already wanted to do things. And certainly, I think you've seen that from him in the way he's integrated himself into the locker room over the last couple of weeks.
Might we lead the league in 12 personnel, Drew?
I'm not going to make any predictions. But I think, if you look at us last year, we were dynamic with tight ends on the field, and we have a number of them that do different things well. And I think that makes you difficult to defend. So one of the things I'm sure we talked about it last year was we need to be multiple. We need to keep people off balance. And that's a position where flexibility and attitude create a lot of that versatility.
I'm going to ask questions because Wolf's going to start making suggestions.
No, I'm not, Coach.
I should have brought a notepad.
I'll give you this one. Kyler Murray, it seems like such a basic thing, but Wolf and I were talking about this last week. Going into last season, not from you guys, but just nationally, there was this talk of like, well, is he even going to play this year? He obviously played. He played a good half of the season. Just in terms of being able to evaluate not only him, but like what else you needed on offense and what else you can potentially do. How big was it that he was able to go out there and play a good chunk of the season?
Big. I think at the end of the day, we're always going to build our offense around our best players. And Kyler Murray's our best player. And that's been proven. I think we knew that walking into the building. Certainly everything he did in the weeks of rehab and months of rehab leading up until him hitting the field, I think we felt that. And then we got to see it come to fruition. So it was great for me, for us as an offense, as an organization, say, all right, here's what he does really well. Here's how we need to build around him. Here's what the offense needs to look like with him on the field. I think that was a really important process because if it was starting week one and that was the first time this year, you'd still be in a lot of gray on some of those issues.
What do you think is the next step for Kyler?
I think it's consistency. I think that's what you look for in this league at every position. Like, and we say this to the offense all the time. The guys that wear gold jackets do it all the time, forever. Like, that's what makes them unbelievable because it's so hard to do. Mm-hmm. You've seen guys in this league that have great careers that rise up really quickly and fall off really quickly. I think the thing for him is going to be doing it right every time, all the time. I think that's what we're going to stay on him about. He's certainly really been great in terms of taking that coaching and trying to push himself toward that goal. But that's, I think, the ultimate goal.
Two guys, we're talking to Drew Petzing, two guys you get to add to the passing game this year. I know you've been asked a lot about one of them, and Marvin Harrison Jr., but also the addition of Zay Jones not that long ago. To bring both of those guys in, what does that potentially do for your offense?
I think it speaks to that versatility, whether it's in the tight end room or the wideout room. You got guys that have played this sport at a high level. They do a lot of different things well. You can move them around the formation. They're high football character guys. So it gives us that, hey, are we going to be in 12? Are we going to be in 13? Are we going to be in 11? And what's it going to look like? It gives us so many different variations to be able to do that.
So Kyler Murray, I thought, watching him play last year, he looked encouraged to me. He sounded encouraged as well. And a lot of it was because he was playing under center, especially the last 4 games. I was thinking how much he was playing from under center. And he evolved himself as a player, I think, Drew, and he evolved this offense with him being under center more. Do you see that expanding even into this year?
Yes and no. I think a lot of it's going to depend on what are they doing on defense. What's the front look like? What's the pressure structure look like? What is the best way for us to make it look like pre-snap? Hey, we could run, we could pass, we could action, we could keep. I think a lot of that is great under center.
Yeah.
Certainly, yes, it was the first time, I guess, for him doing it at a high volume, but there was no doubt in my mind it was something physically he was going to be very good at. So it was nice. I think in the building it was a lot less shocking to us than maybe it was out there in the world. I think it was one of those things like, he's a great player. He's a good athlete. Like, this won't be an issue. So I think that's a give and take as we go through the season. It's something that we think makes us dynamic, but I don't think we're going to live in that world one way or the other just to do it.
Trey McBride, the jump he made last year, is it fair to expect another big jump next year? I mean, even if it doesn't look exactly the same, he was, I think we would all agree, one of your main breakout players last year.
Yeah, and I don't, to put pressure on him, I know he puts a ton of pressure on himself regardless of what the performance looked like last season. So, I think our mindset and what we try to preach to all the guys is you need to get better every day. And if that looks like a giant stride length at the end of the year, great. If that looks like you took 2 steps forward at the end of the year, that's progress. And we need to continue to preach that, because if you get too caught up in, did I make a big enough jump? I need to produce at this level. You're going to stop worrying about all the things that are going to allow you to do those things.
Yep.
Drew, I got a guy who is 6'2", 232 pounds. His name is James Conner. We like to attack the line of scrimmage with James Conner and then use play action to throw the ball over his head. I absolutely love that. Then we went out and got this kid named Trey Benson, who's a big guy himself, 223 pounds, somewhere in that vicinity right now, and can absolutely run. It seems like to me that we're drafting for depth at that position. Talk to me about Trey Benson and the impact he could have as a rookie.
I think you hit on it. It's a side-speed combination that's really rare. I think you saw it show up and produce at a really high level throughout his college career. And we spoke to the football character. He's the type of guy that loves to improve, loves to work at the game, loves to go out there and play. He's going to be a great teammate. He's going to show up in the building every day and work his tail off, which is huge. You can't have too many of those guys at any position. So, I think Monty does a great job of identifying the guys and the positions of need that we need to make sure that we're going to go out and be competitive over the course of a 17-game season, and Trey's certainly going to be a part of that.
We're talking to Drew Petzing. Drew, JG, and he did say he has veto power to change this back, but he said Paris Johnson Jr. is going to start on the left side, at least for now. Can you just kind of give everybody a sense of how difficult, or maybe not difficult, for a guy like Paris it is to make that transition from right to left?
I'm not going to lie. I've played 0 snaps of tackle in the National Football League, which is, I know, a shock to a lot of people. So I honestly, and I say that, I think they would be better at answering that than I am. I think he's played it before.
Yeah.
So I think that if he'd never gotten to a stance over there and never taken a rep, I think it might be a little bit of a bigger transition depending on his comfort level and how much he was able to rep it. Knowing that he's already done it, my guess is it's going to be like he's not even going to blink.
Okay.
Drew, why is a fullback not part of your ferocious philosophy?
Look, we're out of time.
Why is that?
Wait, we just gave it a different name in tight end. They still play the same position.
Well, I know they do, but they line up on the line of scrimmage so much of the time right there. Where's the wham block?
Well, Drew, we appreciate your time.
Drew, you're the best, buddy.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys. It was great.
man. Appreciate
Anytime.
you.
Great talking to you guys.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.